Good afternoon, Patriots. This is Praying Medic. Welcome to my QAnon broadcast for Friday, May 1st. Those of you who are following along at home doing your own decodes, you can find Q posts on a number of different websites, including qanon.news/Q or qanon.pub. If you have an Android device and you'd like to get notifications when Q is posting, there are two options for that, Q Map and Q Alerts. You can find them in the Play Store. If you have an iPhone, you might want to check out the Get Pushed app and then look for the Q Alerts updates. My theme for this broadcast is In It Together. And if you're new to Q, if you need a little bit of information on what Q is all about, how Q started, some of the major themes and issues that Q discusses, you might want to check out my book, Calm Before the Storm. I have been getting notifications from people saying that they can't purchase it on Amazon. I'm not sure why. One woman said she tried to purchase it and Amazon would not let her click on the purchase button. Another person said it got dumped out of her shopping cart and she couldn't put it back in. So, my book is also available on Barnes & Noble. You can order it online. And if you live outside of the United States, you might want to check out bookdepository.com. Book Depository does have the book Calm Before the Storm available, and they say they have free delivery worldwide. So you can, if you live in Canada or Europe, Australia, you can check it out there. All right. As I said, my theme for this broadcast is In It Together, and Q was a busy little bomber last night. I was up till midnight again, trying to keep up on Q and getting screen caps of all the posts and doing all the research. So this is from yesterday. This was posted at 1937 local time, and there's a link to a proclamation by the president that proclaims May 1st today as Law Day USA. And Q posted a little excerpt from the proclamation. Now therefore I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, in accordance with Public Law 87-20, as amended, do hereby proclaim May 1st, 2020 as Law Day USA. I urge all Americans, including government officials, to observe this day by reflecting upon the importance of the rule of law in our nation and displaying the flag of the United States in support of this national observance. And I especially urge the legal profession, the press, and the radio and television and media industries to promote and to participate in the observance of this day, Q. And along with that, Q posted a picture that we've seen quite a few times before. 3 houses with 3 porches, and there's 3 American flags out. All right, next we've got a tweet from Benjamin Weingarten, who's a reporter. New Flynn document dump, one wonders who was Crossfire Typhoon. And I've been getting questions from people through private message asking, why did they target General Flynn? Why was General Flynn a threat? And so if you're new and you haven't been following Q all that long, General Flynn served as the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency under President Obama. He was essentially forced out of that position in 2014 when he disagreed with Obama's foreign policies specific to Islamic terrorism. And General Flynn, as the former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, would know a lot about illegal activities that were committed by government during the Obama administration. So Flynn, metaphorically speaking, knows where the bodies are buried. He's got the dirt on a lot of people's crimes. That's why they targeted him, because he's a threat. So Benjamin Weingarten has a screen cap here. It's from a declassified email from Peter Strzok to his boss, Bill Priestap, who was head of counterintelligence at the FBI at the time. And there's references in here to Crossfire Typhoon, Crossfire Razor, and Crosswind. So he wants to know, who is Crossfire Typhoon? Q posted a link to that tweet and listed other FBI investigations related to the 2016 presidential campaign. Crossfire Hurricane, that was the overall FBI investigation into supposed Trump-Russia collusion. Then there was Crossfire Typhoon, Crosswind, those are mentioned in this. And then Q writes in here, in brackets, class 1 through 99, so it's classified yet, unreleased, redacted. So there's going to be more names that we're going to probably see in the future. And Q writes, you didn't think the statement by POTUS regarding calm before the storm was just random, did you? Transparency brings accountability. So as more documents get declassified, people are going to be held accountable. Now, the reference to calm before the storm is not a reference to my book. It's a reference to something the president said on the evening of October 5th. And I'll let you listen to this.
You guys know what this represents?
Tell us
Memories the calm before the storm.
what's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm is
We
the
have the
president?
world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Give us a hint on your decision.
Thank you, everybody.
What storm, Mr. President? You'll find out. Yeah, they're about to find out. All right, declassified email here that we're looking at from Strzok. Again, Crossfire Typhoon, Crossfire Razor, Crosswind, and we know now, and I just follow these guys on Twitter. They help me do some of the research. Technofog and Undercover Huber and Brian Cates and a number of other accounts are really good to follow on Twitter. They do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to FISA research and looking through the declassified documents. So Technofog posted this. The operation that targeted General Flynn was called by the FBI Crossfire Razor. Now, on January 4th, 2017, the FBI field office found no derogatory information on General Flynn and decided to close Crossfire Razor. Then there are text messages that had been declassified by Peter Strzok, who said, don't close Crossfire Razor. Okay, and we're going to get into all this stuff here. So Strzok's declassified texts show that, at least according to him, the top-level management in the FBI, called the 7th floor, requested that that operation not be closed. Strzok wrote, 7th floor is involved. 7th floor is just a common term inside baseball for the FBI leadership. Strzok texted, if you haven't closed Razor yet, don't close it. And they were referring to possible use of the Logan Act violations to keep investigations open. That was a pretense for keeping General Flynn under surveillance. They were trying to build a case that General Flynn, by talking to Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, might have been guilty of violating the Logan Act, which of course wasn't the case, but that was just a pretense to keep the case open. They were ready to close it. Crossfire Hurricane was predicated upon reporting the absence of any derogatory information or lead information from these logical sources, reduced the number of investigative avenues and techniques to pursue. Per the direction of the FBI management, Crossfire Razor was not interviewed as part of the case closing procedure. So they didn't interview General Flynn before they decided to close the case, and that was at the direction of FBI management. And it's because they didn't have any information or any reason to keep the investigation open, but they did anyway. And that's actually been a point of contention with Attorney General Barr. He has said publicly that his concerns about the FBI's investigation of the Trump administration was the fact that, okay, fine, you believe you have a predicate for opening an investigation, that's fine, but when you start getting your reports back and you get your information from your surveillance and you find no evidence that there's any wrongdoing, at that point you should close the case. And they didn't. They kept the case open. They kept getting surveillance warrants to continue spying on people when there was no legitimate reason to do that. And that's Barr's concern with this whole operation. All right. Newly declassified documents also show Bill Priestap was concerned about how the FBI handled its interrogation of General Flynn. Those are some handwritten notes that, according to John Solomon and a few other people who reviewed the notes, they believe that Bill Priestap was concerned. about the FBI potentially trying to trap Flynn or get him to lie. And Q has indicated that Priestap was one of the cooperating witnesses in the investigation. Chuck Grassley, interestingly, tweeted this: the new DOJ Flynn documents are stamped with SCO, as in Special Counsel's Office. Did Robert Mueller's team have these docs? Why did the team sit on them? What else is Mueller team that cost taxpayers $30 million plus hiding? The people deserve answers. Restore faith in federal law enforcement agencies. Now, there's a declassified transcript of a conversation that George Papadopoulos had with a confidential human source. That source was wired up, had a long conversation with Papadopoulos. The transcript of that conversation is made public, and in that transcript, his case is referred to as Crossfire Typhoon. So Papadopoulos is Crossfire Typhoon. Flynn is Crossfire Razor. And I noticed this morning Technofog was tweeting out he believes Carter Page is Crosswind. If you're curious to know who that is, it looks like it might be Carter Page. We don't have confirmation of it yet, but we'll find out at some point what all these code names are about. So Q then tweeted out this meme, which has, let's see, Barack Obama and Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Hillary, John Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, John Brennan, Sally Yates, and all these other people, Rod Rosenstein, Rob Mueller. And Q said, when this is finished, a much bigger graphic will be needed, much bigger, biggest political scandal in American history. There won't be a meme big enough to show all the people who are going to be indicted. And you're just going to have to wait. Those indictments are coming. All right, Q then tweeted this. It's a meme, and it's a tweet from Nancy Pelosi that has been somewhat modified. And this is initially talking about Christine Blasey Ford and her accusations against Brett Kavanaugh. But Q switched the words around and made the accusations from Tara Reade against Joe Biden. And of course, Nancy is not interested in hearing what Tara Reade has to say about Joe Biden. She's standing by her Joe. So Q wrote, used as a political tool to attack the other side, weaponized. Wear the pink hats. When you're awake, you're able to see clearly. Q also tweeted a link. Tim runs his mouth. And that is a mashup of Nancy Pelosi defending Christine Blasey Ford in her accusations against Kavanaugh on the one hand, and then actually wearing the same outfit, basically defending Joe Biden and giving no credence at all to Tara Reade's accusations. So Nancy Pelosi doesn't really, I don't think, care about standing up for women who have been sexually abused or assaulted. She's all about what is going to be politically expedient. Then there's Chris Hayes. Yesterday, Fire Chris Hayes was trending on Twitter. No relation to me. And it was trending on Twitter because Chris Hayes had the audacity to suggest that maybe people should actually look into this whole Joe Biden, Tara Reade thing. Maybe there is something to the accusations. Maybe we need to just not brush it under the rug. And of course, the mainstream media and leftists went berserk and wanted him out. So Q posted a link to that article and said, when they can no longer control you, they remove you. Control the narrative, control you in brackets. The news is fake, the war is real. That was my meme last night of Q dropping all these posts in rapid succession. All right, and Anon posted screen caps of a letter from Adam Schiff and then a tweet from Q Research Notables talking about YouTube's acquiescence to the demands of Adam Schiff, that they censor and pull videos that are providing misinformation about the coronavirus pandemic. So the Anon posted this, and then Q responded to the Anon. Control of the population, sheep in brackets, control of the narrative, Q. This is all about controlling the narrative because, you know, they know that most people will believe and obey whatever they're told is authoritative. This is all about control. Ronna McDaniel Yesterday, a massive story broke about FBI malfeasance at the dawn of the Trump administration. How many times did the mainstream media mention it during their morning shows? CNN, 0. CBS, 0. ABC, 0. NBC, 0. MSNBC, 0. Unreal. And Q posted a link to her tweet. Control. All right. The FBI almost closed the investigation of General Flynn, so we now call that Crossfire Razor, on January 4th, 2017. But we now know Peter Strzok stepped in and kept it open. It's interesting that the next day, on January 5th, Barack Obama and James Comey had a meeting where they discussed the Trump-Russia investigation. Now, on January 20th, as the Obama administration was leaving office, Susan Rice sent herself an email noting that Obama stressed in that January 5th meeting that everything pertaining to the Trump-Russia investigation was done by the book. Chuck Grassley thought it was very unusual that Susan Rice wrote that memo and was curious as to why she wrote a memo memorializing everything if it was being done by the book, kind of suggesting that maybe things weren't done by the book. Moving along, the DNC announced it's going to push back its presidential convention 1 month to August, supposedly due to COVID-19. There's a link to the article. Q posted a link to the article, and Q was not buying it. Q said, why are they pushing back the D convention? COVID-19 concern or a strategic last-minute change? Change of batter coming? Yes, a change of batter is coming. And I've been sensing this for a long time. I never thought that Joe Biden was going to be the nominee. Q asks, why was she saved from officially announcing? Why was she reserved for a last-minute change? How do you attempt to sneak one in? How do you attempt to ensure victory? So Q is indicating that he believes a female candidate is actually going to be the nominee. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So Q continues, adopt national vote by mail, right? So a lot of the Democrat states, governors have been demanding national vote by mail. And of course, that does tend to open things up for voter fraud. How do you convince America it was legitimate? Oh, well, we're not really trying to manipulate the vote or be crooked. We just had to do this social distancing thing. That's how they legitimize it. Release fake polls indicating favorable leads in swing states. So we've been getting all these polls lately that claim that Joe Biden has a massive lead over Trump, right? And if you're going to rig the election, you don't want to rig the election too much out that would prove that the polls were wrong. So you'd have to create fake polls saying that Biden is in the lead. That way, that doesn't look like there's any hanky-panky going on. How do you harm opponents' accomplishments regarding the economy and unemployment? How do you terminate opponents' highly effective rallies? How do you shelter Democrat lead candidate from embarrassing debates and or rallies? How do you shelter Democrat corruption regarding FISA, Russia, Flynn, etc. from reaching the mainstream? All of this corruption regarding the surveillance of General Flynn, surveillance of the president, the corruption related to Ukraine and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, all of that has been swept under the rug because all the media wants to talk about now is the coronavirus. How do you extend the trade negotiation deadline with China? We all know China doesn't really want to fulfill their obligation on the trade agreement. So they're hoping that they can push this along, drag it out, and get Joe Biden or Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton in the White House. And then the China deal is ripped up. How do you limit, test constitutional rights of the people? So one of the things they're doing with this lockdown is they're testing how far they can go with restricting our constitutional rights. They're evaluating our reactions to it. And if people just passively accept everything that comes their way, they're going to have more and more of their constitutional rights taken away, which is why we need to push back on the tyrants. How do you provide cover for state governments to adopt new voter laws? How do you effectively control the population? How do you expand big tech overreach regarding tracing and privacy issues? Right, so we've got some states on the East Coast now that have these drones that are flying over metropolitan areas tracking people to see if they're observing social distancing rules. How do you fit, in brackets, taxpayer bailout? How do you fix taxpayer bailout? The long broken economies of California and New York. So California and New York went hog wild spending money on things like, in California, the bullet train to nowhere that cost $3 billion. And a lot of that money went into the pockets of corrupt contractors and politicians. And let's just take taxpayer money and bail all those expenditures out. How do you enrich select people's companies? By promoting a solution to a global crisis. Right. So Big Pharma jumps in and, hey, we've got a magical cure for the pandemic. How do you keep people living in fear and isolation in order to accept all of the above? Define insurgency. How do you accomplish all of the above? We've been talking a lot about insurgency lately. Devin Nunes made some statements in an interview with Lou Dobbs last night and basically said that he believes members of the media can and should be charged with treason.
You named a lot of the bad actors in this horrible tragedy, but you forgot the biggest one, the enablers, and that is the mainstream media, who effectively might as well just move their offices into the Democratic National Committee. They were in on this from the start. If you look at how they're reacting over the last 24 hours, they're just in denial. Now, these are the people that ought to be looked at for treason, okay? Because a lot of these people knew about the Clinton paid-for dossier. They were briefed on this, and then they were given these transcripts, okay, intelligence transcripts. They were given this information. That's illegal. Those leaks are illegal, all right? Never should that have happened. And so the fact that you still have these lunatics out there, there's probably 100 of them, Lou, that were kind of the official Russia hoaxers. They are out there still today accusing General Flynn of being some type of Russian agent.
All right. Q then wrote this: was the DNC hacked by Russia? There's a typo in here. Q put in was twice, and he corrected that later. So was the DNC hacked by Russia, or was it CIA under Brennan, who's in brackets, by force? Seth Rich, internal DL, hand-to-hand pass, USA. CrowdStrike code insert. If FBI, chain of command, is in brackets. Was corrupt what other investigations were corrupted? Who did they provide cover for? How far back did it go? Q. Q has told us that the DNC server was not hacked by Russia. It was actually a CIA operation. And this is from WikiLeaks Vault 7. CIA has the capability with Umbrage, the program they called Umbrage, where they stole hacking tools from hackers that allowed them to misdirect attribution of a hack by leaving behind digital fingerprints of the groups that the attack techniques were stolen from. So if you steal hacking tools or software from Russia or Iran or any other country, you can then leave digital fingerprints behind implicating them. And Q has indicated that that's what happened. And CrowdStrike helped facilitate that. So if the FBI chain of command was corrupt, what other investigations were corrupted? And that is a really good question. How far back did it go? Well, here's an NPR article, The Massive Case of Collective Amnesia. NPR in this article says that FBI has always been political, all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt. There was a predecessor to the FBI. And it's always been used as a political tool to cover up crimes and to expose the crimes of your opponents. Back in the 60s, it was revealed through a series of newspaper articles and did some investigative research that Barry Goldwater's campaign was spied on by LBJ. You can find the articles if you look for them, but Lyndon Baines Johnson used the CIA illegally surveil Barry Goldwater's campaign. So this illegal surveillance, using that as tools, has been around for a long time. All right, this is Q just correcting his was error in the previous post. And then Q posted, in it together. We've got a meme of the Marines on Iwo Jima raising the flag. That has been a hashtag a lot of us have been using on Twitter lately. Q wrote, "Sometimes you can't tell the public the truth. You must show them. A deeply entrenched enemy who controls the vast majority of communications is only defeated by what? Game theory? Q." And people ask me this quite a bit. Why is the president allowing all this stuff to happen? People feel like they're losing their civil rights. They feel like everything is just going out of control. The governors are going crazy. Their mayors are going crazy. We're losing everything. Why is Trump allowing this to happen? Well, when people see the evil agenda of their elected leaders on display, sometimes they recognize what's happening and they react appropriately. So in states like California and Michigan, you're having pretty heated protests. People are getting pissed off and they're coming out and protesting all these Gestapo measures that their governors are putting in place on them. And that is serving to wake the public up to the fact that they're actually living under a soft tyranny. And now it's becoming a hard tyranny. But that's the reason I think why Trump is allowing this to happen is he's exposing corruption. He is letting people see just exactly how evil their elected leaders are. And then the people need to go to the polls and vote those elected leaders out. This is showing people how corrupt their leaders are. All right, President was asked yesterday whether he would pardon General Flynn, whether there might be a position for him in the administration, and what that position might be. He said he wouldn't need to pardon General Flynn because it looks like he's going to be exonerated. And he said he has not decided if he's going to invite General Flynn back, but he's considering it. Did not have a specific position in mind. So Q posted a link to that tweet with that video. And there's a snippet here from a post from March of 2018. Flynn targeted, why? Who knows where the bodies are buried? Cleared of all charges. Trump administration version 2. So Q told us 2 years ago General Flynn was going to be cleared of all charges. I don't know of anyone else who was actually making that prediction 2 years ago. And this is the original post. And actually, the original post talks about Joe Biden and China. Big development. That was a big development indeed, and it's going to get a lot worse for Joe Biden. Moving along, James Comey tweeted out a picture of a rose, and he wrote, "Comforting sign of spring in our garden." And look, again, another mental illness that I have. I get a lot of messages from people who are just upset and angry because these corrupt people aren't showing the proper attitude. They're not showing fear. They're not lashing out. They're not freaking out. They seem smug, and the smugness is irritating everybody. Well, I'm going to tell you, these people are not going to give you the pleasure of watching them freak out publicly. They're not going to do it. Hillary Clinton will, when she is delivered to the gates of Gitmo, she will be as smug and arrogant then as she is now, and she's not going to change. So you might as well get used to it. As these people are prosecuted, they're going to continue their smugness and their aloofness and their pride. On Twitter, Lisa Page and a couple other people were posting these snarky, smug responses. And, you know, that's just how they are. It's not going to change. Q posted a link to Comey's tweet and then a screenshot of "Paint the Roses Red" to frantically attempt to cover up a mistake with severe consequences, popularized by Alice in Wonderland. "I accidentally broke me mom's favorite vase, so I had to paint the roses red." And then Q wrote, "Denied, justice will be served, Q." And that is in reference to, again, Alice in Wonderland. Greg Katsios, I hope I said that name right, was cued for this tweet: "Infiltration instead of invasion." And it's a video of John Brennan explaining the many experiences that he had with Islamic culture. And he actually speaks in Arabic here for a little bit. But then Q posted a link to that tweet and then also posted a graphic with Barack Obama as a young man kind of dressed in Islamic garb. We have a tweet here, speaking of Lisa Page, to a tweet from Lisa Page. who served as counsel to Andrew McCabe. Her tweet, it's the second part of 2 tweets. She said, Iran is smart and strategic and all over the world. Iran isn't an irrational actor, but they have the pride of a 5,000-year-old culture. I fear they're going to hit back in a way to remind America that they are a real and independent country. She really seems to admire Iran for some reason. And Q just kind of went on a little binge last night. Posted a screen cap of a news article about Peter Strzok II. He's the father of the former FBI agent Peter Strzok. And the Peter Strzok II lived in Iran for many years. He lived in a lot of different countries in the Middle East. Here's a snippet from an article. America as a country is despised because it was seen as a supporter of the Shah of Iran, but individual Americans were treated well in respect to the crisis in Iran, according to a former Gilman area man who left that Asian nation February 6th. Gilman, Wisconsin. This is near Eau Claire. Peter Strzok, 43, son of Mr. and Mrs. Mike Strzok, now living in Eau Claire, said he hopes the government of Ayatollah Khomeini will stabilize the country. I'd like very much to go back to Iran, said Strzok, who spent 2 terms in military service and 7 months as a civilian in the country. We know that also that Peter Strzok III, the FBI agent, he grew up in Iran, went to high school there, and then before that high school was closed down. And Q is just pointing out a lot of interesting background information on people. Next, we have a post from Q. It's a Encyclopedia Britannica entry for Valerie Jarrett, who was born in Iran, funnily enough. And of course, she was a senior advisor to Barack Obama. Then Q posted a link to a Daily Caller article about Imran Awan. And how the heck did a Pakistani contractor get access to highly classified congressional information systems without obtaining a security clearance or submitting to a background check? I think that's what Q is getting at. And then we have a link here to a really good article. If you have not read this article, it's from Politico. The title is Obama's Hidden Iran Deal Giveaway. It's a deep dive into the Iran deal and how Obama essentially allowed a lot of Iranian terrorists and nuclear scientists to be set free as part of the Iran deal. Why would he do that? Big questions. We have this tweet from Deep State Expose, and this is one we had a couple weeks ago where Barack Obama said
before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
So why was the Obama administration training ISIL forces? Another link to a MichiganRadio.org post, and this is about tensions flaring on the Senate floor when a GOP senator accused indirectly a Democrat senator of being a sympathizer of the Muslim Brotherhood. We have a link to an article from Real Clear Politics where Mark Levin wrote, "The Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated our government. It's called Barack Obama." And then we have another link to a tweet from Methods, and that is it's audio from Michelle Bachmann in 2012. I'll let you listen to this.
It appears that there has been deep penetration in the halls of our United States government by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood has been found to be an unindicted co-conspirator on terrorism cases, and yet it appears that there are individuals who are associated with the Muslim Brotherhood who have positions in very sensitive positions in our Department of Justice, our Department of Homeland Security, potentially even in the National Intelligence Agency.
Former prosecutor Andrew McCarthy has written a lot of articles about the Muslim Brotherhood's invasion of America's government. Actually wrote a book on that. This is an article about Huma Abedin's ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and how she came under a lot of questioning from Congress when she was working with Hillary. Q posted a link to a Fox News article. It's an op-ed where the author said it was time for James Clapper to resign because he was dismissing the seriousness of the Muslim Brotherhood's infiltration of the U.S. government. He said that it was obvious and that Clapper definitely had an agenda in dismissing these claims. All right. Q then wrote One Step at a Time. Q. How do you infiltrate?
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day.
Q posted a link to a video and a link to a bugle call titled To the Color. The video is just simply the American flag waving in the wind. This link is to a bugle call that is titled To the Color. This morning, Joe Biden was interviewed by Mika Brzezinski, and Joe had a horrendous interview. He was not able to answer the questions of Mika Brzezinski. I'll actually let you listen to this interview.
I am absolutely certain.
Why not approve a search of her name in those records?
Approve a search of her name?
Yes, and reveal anything that might be related to Tara Reid in the University of Delaware records.
There is nothing. They wouldn't. They're not there. And if it's, I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
The point I'm trying to make is that
there are no personnel records by definition.
The point I'm trying to make is that you are approving and actually calling for a search of the National Archives records of anything pertaining to Tara Reid. I'm asking why not do the same in the University of Delaware records, which have raised questions because they were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were sealed for a longer period of time. Why not do it for both sets of records?
Because the material in the University of Delaware has no personnel files, but it does have a lot of confidential conversations that I had with the president about a particular issue, that I had with the heads of state of other places, that would not be something that would be revealed while I was in public office or while I was seeking public office. It just stands to reason. To the best of my knowledge, no one else has done that either.
I'm just talking about her name, not anybody else in those records. A search for that. Nothing classified with the president or anybody else. I'm just asking why not do a search for Tara Reid's name in the University of Delaware records?
Look, I mean, who does that search?
The University of Delaware. Perhaps you set up a commission that can do it. I don't know. Whatever is the fairest way to create the most transparency.
Well, look, Mika.
And I believe that is a reason why Joe will ultimately not be the nominee for the Democrat Party. This is why Hillary Clinton won't be the nominee.
Huber had originally been asked to take a look at the FISA applications and the electronic surveillance, but then he stood back and put that on hold while the Office of Inspector General was conducting its review. So he has not been active on this front in recent months, and so Durham is taking over that role. The other issues he's been working on relate to Hillary Clinton. Those are winding down, and hopefully we'll be in a position to bring those to fruition.
And you can take a guess at who you think is going to be the eventual Democrat nominee. All right. This morning, Q posted a link to a CDC article. It's death counts for COVID-19, pneumonia, and influenza. And These are clipped from the article, copied and pasted. 11,356 COVID-19 deaths versus 54,217 pneumonia, influenza, or COVID-19. And then Q wrote, influenza death rate is low versus previous years. Knowledge is power, information warfare. So for the week of April 11, 2020, deaths from all causes dropped off dramatically, not just from the previous weeks, but also when compared to previous years. So if you go to this chart that Q linked to, you find out that if you just look at the trend, right, COVID-19 deaths are in this column right here, the second from the left, and then deaths from pneumonia, influenza, or COVID-19 grouped all together, deaths from all causes, and then percent of expected deaths. So you can see a wrap-up of deaths from all causes, deaths from COVID-19. But what you see in this most recent week, which is the data they had for April 11, there's a sudden drop in COVID-19 deaths from 5,000 to 3,500. There's a sudden drop in deaths from all respiratory illnesses from 8,800 to 5,300. A sudden drop in deaths from 49,000 to 28,000 deaths of all causes. And that comes out to a 50% of the expected death rate for that week. So why are the numbers dropping off suddenly? That is a good question. Q then posted this. It's a graph of U.S. pneumonia deaths week by week. Up here, you have the number of deaths from pneumonia on a weekly basis. What's interesting is you can see here that the red line is 2019 to 2020. There's a sudden, sharp drop-off in the number of deaths from pneumonia over the last, looks like 7 or 8 weeks. How do you explain that? Q asked, why are children immune to COVID-19? How many children die from influenza each year? Why are elderly more at risk to COVID-19? How many elderly die from influenza each year? Q. I wonder if this drop-off in deaths from pneumonia is related to more patients being treated with hydroxychloroquine and being treated earlier. So they lump all these deaths together because when you've got COVID-19, you've got influenza, and you've got pneumonia. Pneumonia is essentially a respiratory infection. COVID-19 and influenza are a virus. And if you just think of it in a two-step pattern, a lot of people don't actually die from influenza. They die from pneumonia. And pneumonia causes respiratory failure. And then they end up on a ventilator. They end up in multi-system organ failure, and then they die. The ultimate cause of death isn't necessarily the virus. It is a condition in the lungs and conditions in the body that come from the virus. So these are just pneumonia deaths, but a lot of them are COVID related and probably influenza related. And like I said, I'm wondering if the drop-off in deaths are related to treatment with hydroxychloroquine. I don't know. I just think they might be. Q asked about pediatric deaths from influenza. According to the CDC, during week 17 of 2020, there was 1 pediatric death from influenza in the entire United States. 1. That's why Q asked, why are children more or less immune to these diseases? And it's because they have good immune systems. According to the Vital Statistics report, and this is from 2017, in 2017, 261 children under the age of 5 died from influenza and pneumonia combined. But in the same year, if you look at the age groups over 65, there are 45,000 people who died who are over 65. Right? So why do elderly people, why are they more susceptible to pneumonia, influenza, and coronaviruses? Well, because their immune system is generally not in that good a shape. Q then posted this, why are influenza medications effective at treating COVID-19? Well, influenza medications are effective probably because there's little actual difference between COVID-19 and influenza. I think when all the research comes out, I think we're going to find out that COVID-19 is going to be almost identical in most ways to the influenza. People are free to disagree on that issue, but it's too early to say definitively, but that's what I think we're going to see. All right, Q posted this, de facto standard. What does that mean? Well, a de facto standard is one that is widely accepted within an industry, although it has not officially been sanctioned by a recognized sanctioning organization. A de jure standard is one that has been officially sanctioned by an organization, right? So there's de facto standard and there's de jure standard. And I think Q is getting at the idea that hydroxychloroquine is a de facto standard in the field of medicine for treating coronaviruses of all types, even though there hasn't been a lot of double-blind randomized trials specifically on COVID-19. It still is the de facto standard for treating those viruses. And as this Anand said, it soon to be the de jure standard. That's quite possible. Martin Geddes had this to say this morning. Between the fraudulent inflation of COVID-19 deaths, suppressed cures, especially hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, zinc, and vitamin D3, add into that harm to life due to economic distress, failure of epidemiological models, inconclusive value of lockdown policy, minimal threat to life if you're under the age of 50, it's time to reopen the world. I agree with Martin. And that gets us caught up to Q for today. Please keep me and Denise in prayer. Keep the president in prayer. Keep Q and the team in prayer. We love you all. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast.